Runners Only with Dom Harvey.
Runners Only with Dom Harvey and Hamish Kerr. G'day, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Hey, thanks so much for coming here. Hamish Kerr, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, the New Zealander that's jumped higher than any other New Zealander ever. You and I, just before we sat down to record this, we went to the coffee shop just over the road from me, and as we were walking over the road, like we walked past just a normal-sized van, and I was thinking to myself, like with a mattress on the roof of that van, you could legit jump up on it.
Oh, easily, mate. I could jump over it if I had to. If you had told me, I would have done it. Come on.
No, but the thing is, like the style of jumping you do, it's not cool. You can't jump over a van. You're going to land on your back.
If I had $1 for every time someone asked me to jump over something, give me 40 minutes to warm up. I'll get the shoes on.
But you do jump like ridiculously high, like 2.3 meters.
Yeah. So my best is 231, which the best way that I like to comprehend it is a door frame is 198. And then you put one of those rulers that you had at school, the sort of 30 centimetre ones, on top of the door frame, and I can jump over that.
It's nuts. It's nuts. So what is a jump that you can just nail every time, like with your eyes shut? 2 meters? Like what's the level where it starts to get tricky and you might miss it?
In competition, my starting height would be probably about 217. So that's, again, still quite high. And then that's something that I probably had to get my head around this year a lot because I did a lot of international comps for the first time in a while, and yeah, they just start so bloody high. So
what are you, 1.9?
I'm 198.
Right.
So I'm not sure, but it's still very high.
Still a lot higher than what you are. And the next best in New Zealand, what can they do?
There's a couple of young fellas who are coming through who can do sort of like maybe 208 to 210.
Losers.
Yeah.
No, that's
why would you even bother? Nah, great guys. I trained with them, so it's nice to see them do it.
Yeah. But you're just that much better than anyone else in New Zealand. Like you turn up to any competition, you like with what you do on your first jump, you're gonna blow everyone else out of the water, aren't you? Usually. Yeah,
I win the competition with my first jump most times in New Zealand, and that's something that I've had to contend with a lot over the last few years. Just as you know, I'm a victim of my own success. I've gotten better and better, and the thrill of winning or like beating people has diminished so much that you kind of have to find other things to get you going. And I think COVID was actually really good for that as well, because I kind of had in my head in 2019, I was sort of just starting to get quite good. I jumped 230 Oceania champs to qualify for world champs for the first time. And I was just in this opinion that I'd never jump high in New Zealand. I was just like, it would never happen. Like, it's too cold. There's no one ever pushing me or anything, because I generally do well when there's competition. And then COVID happened, the borders shut, and we had to find other ways to get us going. And that was really good for me, because it made me kind of go back to what I enjoy about jumping and kind of why I do the sport, what keeps me in it. And I realized that actually, like, I just love jumping high, and it doesn't really matter where. So I was able to sort of tap into that, and I can jump quite high in New Zealand now.
Yeah, and I mean, winning feels good, even if it's not good in terms of like driving you to be the absolute best you can be. Winning is still fucking nice, I'm sure.
It's always nice to be number one.
All right, there's so much we need to talk about. We will go way back. There's the Commonwealth Games gold medal that we need to talk about, the 10th at the Olympic Games. First of all, what's your relationship with running? I believe you were quite a good runner before you discovered high jump.
Yes, so I do qualify for Runners Only podcast. I do run from time to time. No, I got into athletics as like a 1,500, 800 meter runner. And for me, I loved running. I think it was because my dad and my sister came out with me a lot. So, we would go as sort of like a little family unit and just go for jogs up Mount Eden and sort of around Cornwall Park and places like that. And so for me, it was just like a real social thing. I loved doing it. And yeah, I think like as I got older, I also did cross country in the winter. So I sort of played rugby and did cross country sort of all the way through high school. And I sucked. Like I was so bad at it. But for me...
You would have been good at like, jumping over the fences though, wouldn't you?
Look, if there was a course with a fence, I was like, I am making up half a second here. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm in 100th, like, I will make up that half second. So it was... And that's funny you say that, because it was like, I would go to athletics and I would get smoked in the 1,500. I'd get smoked in the 800. But I was tired, so I felt like I'd done some work. And then at the end of the day, right at the end of the day, I'd go to the high jump and I'd come like second. And it was kind of like, I was so much better at high jump than I was running even from a young age. But for me, that was just never really like a pathway because, historically we haven't had high jumpers. We don't have anyone to sort of look up to and kind of make you realise.
You're the first male New Zealander to win like a Commonwealth Games gold medal.
I think,
medal or gold?
First male high jumper to win a Commonwealth Games medal.
Who's the female? Was that like Yvette Williams way back?
No, it was Tanya Murray in the 1990 Com Games,
right?
And I believe she won it as well. So we've got a little bit of pedigree on the women's side, but on the men's side, and it's quite different. It's quite a different event. Like just the way that you jump, the kind of the things that the physical traits you need to have are quite different. And so for me it was just like I just loved running, and high jump was just this thing that I was pretty good at, which I could do on the side of that. But as I got older and lazier, I sort of went slower. I went shorter and shorter in events. I went to sort of like 400s and 300 hurdles and all that kind of stuff. And then, eventually I kind of realised that high jump was my thing and just stuck with that.
Yeah, and you still run now. Like you went for a run this morning before coming here.
I did. I got smoked by my sister. So she said, come out for a run. And I was like, yeah, okay, no, I can do that. Like, she works full time. Like surely she couldn't run me around.
Be an athlete.
Exactly. But no, she took me out and we did 15Ks, which I was very proud of actually. Like
that's a good distance.
Running's a funny one, eh? Like I still have a lot of respect for the runners. All the guys on tour who are distance runners, I just love getting chatting to them and just seeing what they do, because for me it's just so impressive. Even just from like a weekend warrior point of view, like the things that people do, to follow something they love and the sort of the distances and the paces that people can do without being like a top athlete is just like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. So you're from Auckland. You live in Christchurch now. You had to relocate down there because that's where your coach lives. How do you find it? How do you find Christchurch? You train like in a corner of like Christchurch Boys High, right?
Yeah. So like I love Auckland. Auckland will kind of always be my home. And
if your family's here, it will be, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's the people up here. But no, I like Christchurch is lovely as well. It's so convenient for training. I mean, like you said, we train at Christchurch Boys High, which is a little strip of track. It's like 60 metres and it's got one bend and a little long jump pit and a javelin runway, and that's it. And it's just on the side of the school and there's a main road right next to it. But it's real grassroots, and like I think that's something that I love about it, because our sport is real grassroots. There's a very small amount of professional athletes, and then pretty much it's propped up by just people who love the sport. And so, I think there's something super, super cool about being able to do a training there on like a Saturday morning and then jumping on a plane, flying to, anywhere in the world, and then suddenly you're competing against, these amazing athletes with 40,000 people watching, and it's like just the juxtaposition between those two things is super grounding, and it's something that I just love. It's awesome. So
what does an average day look like? Like I've got no idea what would be involved in high jump training, but I'm guessing it's not all jumps.
No. So we jump probably about 3 times a week when we're in quite heavy training, and that's so we do sort of 3 times a week jumping. We do 2 or 3 times a week in the weight room doing lifting.
When you say 3 times a week jumping, like how many jumps?
We do one like high intensity session, so that would be quite like a high session on like a longer run up, because the longer the run up, the less jumps you can do, because it's more force involved in the takeoff. So we do quite a lot of like short run up stuff. But
right. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you so many times here just to ask for clarification on things, because like from clips I've seen, it looks like it's 9 steps, 9 steps, and then over head and back first. So is that a long run up, a short run up, standard run up?
So that's my long run up.
Right. It's not that long, mate. Get off.
No, it's not. So I've got one of the shortest run ups on tour, but that's just the way. Yeah, that's just the way I do it. So we do a lot of like 3 stride and 5 stride stuff in training, just because we can kind of mimic the same positions as a full run up, but it doesn't take as much out of your body. So we might do 20 of those in a session, but if I was doing full run ups, like a big session would be like 6 jumps.
Really?
Yeah, it's not much. Nah.
Why does it just does it start to hurt your back? Does it just take
It's ankles mainly. Yeah, so it's a lot of it is just injury. It's pretty much like when you're taking off, there's about, I think it's like 6 to 10 times your body weight goes through your leg. So that's a lot of force when you're running. If you're an 80 kg person and you've got something like 800 kgs of force going through your leg, you can't really sustain that more than about 6 times before something just pops. So yeah, for us, it's kind of trying to balance how much training we need to do to get like the technique, and then the speed and the power and all that stuff. We don't actually do a lot of that in the jumping. It's more like that's why we do gym and that's why we do running to try and increase that stuff. And then we just sort of try and apply it to the jump right at the end.
That surprises me because, and I suppose this is a credit to you, but like if I watch you jump, especially if it's in slow motion, it looks like you're gliding. It's graceful and it's beautiful and it's flowing, but it does make a lot of sense that 6 jumps would be the maximum because there's a fucking lot going on, isn't there? There's a lot of movements.
Yeah.
So in your brain, is it just like muscle memory and second nature now, or are you still thinking?
So when I'm in training, I think a lot. Like I'm thinking about my positions and my cues and what I'm trying to do, and in training, like it friggin' hurts. Like, you know, a bad jump hurts. But then that's what I love about competing is that when you get to competing,
why does it like
just because if you're in the wrong position, or like something isn't quite right, or you're trying to change something and you sort of like if you're trying to change like a position on my curve, for example, because we run in sort of like a bit of a J shape. So we've got the first bit of the run up, which is like you're trying to generate speed, and then you hit the curve, and then that's you trying to like generate a body position in order to be able to take off. And then what that will do is that will give you the amount of lean to propel yourself over the bar, but then also give yourself enough rotation to be able to go over the bar backwards. And so that's why we have to do it in a bit of a curve. But if you're trying to change like the angle of that curve or how deep it is, there's always going to be unintended consequences of that. So I might, you know, my coach might say, okay, like just try and run a bit harder and a bit deeper, but then you get to the takeoff and you're in the wrong position, and then like it just goes all through your leg and just jars something. It's, you know, that amount of force, if you move your leg a little bit and it's not conditioned to it, can hurt quite a bit.
Right. And what sort of heights are we talking about for these training sessions?
I'd jump probably, I'd be happy if I was jumping like 210 to 220 in training.
Right.
I don't jump as high as I do in competition, although I have had a couple of sessions where I've been really, really high and quite close to my personal best, which is exciting. But yeah, I'm the kind of guy who, when I get into competition, like you said, I look like I'm gliding, I look like I'm flying, and I am. And it feels so effortless and nice because I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just jumping. And yeah, those are the jumps I really do it for.
Yeah. By the way, I do need to apologise for all the dumb questions I've got about high jump. But
no, it's all right.
I reckon myself and 99.9% of people.
I was going to say, all your listeners are high jump experts, I'm sure.
No, I feel like, I mean, the amazing thing about high jump is it's one of those sports that every single New Zealander gets to have a go at, right? Even at primary school. Same as, you know, because there's sports that you might be good at, but you never know, like pole vault. Like, who gets to try pole vault?
And the thing that I love about it as well is, like, I feel like, I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but, like, I feel like it's the easiest event to compare. So, for the average person, like, jumping 8 meters in the long jump is just like, they're just like, oh, yeah, cool, it's 8 meters. Or if you run, like, you know, if you're Tanner and you're running like Sam Tanner, that is, like, 1,500 meter runner, like, if you're running like a 331, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that sounds quick, but no one knows what a 331 actually looks like.
Yeah.
But if you say I jumped 2 meters and 30 centimeters, like people know what 2 meters looks like, and so they go, wait, what? Like that's crazy. How do you do that? Especially if you're comparing it to say like a bad high jump who's like maybe, you know, 170 or 160. It's like that sounds like a lot of difference. Whereas, you know, 7 meters in a long jump, which is kind of like it's decent, versus 8 meters, which is world class. It's like it sounds about the same.
Yeah. Yes, I'm guessing most people that listen to this podcast wouldn't have done more than like the scissor jump.
No.
Which is what you do for primary school. And you do now. You do the one called the is it Forsbury flop?
Fosbury flop.
Fosbury, named after
Dick Fosbury,
who was like an American dude in the 50s.
Yeah. So he kind of like was like he was like real into high jump, but like wasn't quite good enough to make the teams and stuff. And I think I don't know the full story, but essentially he just like figured out one day he's like, wait, why are we jumping like this? They were doing a thing called the straddle at that time, which is sort of like you take off from the other side and do this weird thing where you like roll over it like all in one. Yeah,
is there clips online?
Yeah, and it's like people were like blowing out their knees, and it looks ugly as like I've never tried it, but I don't think I'd want to. So yeah, so he just changed it up and ended up making an Olympic team. He didn't win or anything, but pretty quickly like after that, people went, whoa, okay, like
that's how you do it.
And then from there, it's just changed.
Wasn't that funny? So he was never like the best, but his legacy is having this jump named after him that everyone is still using today.
He was pretty bloody good. Like I think he probably got up to about 230, and like he wasn't like getting like technical coaching for it. Like he was just doing it. He was just kind of making it up as he went, which I wouldn't be jumping 230 if I just made it up as I went.
And another thing, this might be a dumb question. Why don't you wear like cycling gear or something? You know what I mean? Like a skin tight top or like bike shorts.
Yeah, that's I actually get asked it quite a bit. I think the thing is like, so we wear, some people wear tight shorts. I prefer split shorts. Especially if it's
you've got the legs. So.
Exactly, mate. You gotta show the pins, which is obviously the main reason. But no, I think it's kind of one of those things that like if you're like the fabric, the weight of the fabric is not going to knock the bar off. Like if you're going to knock the bar off, it's not going to be because you had a baggy t-shirt on. It's because you knocked the bar off. So for us, it's kind of just like wear whatever you want.
Okay, so it's not like a case of like a 1%ers or anything like that.
No.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so you're at 230 now. What's the world record? What's the best in the world?
245 is the best. And yeah, so it's a wee way away, but
you're confident you can do it though. I've heard you in interviews saying you can you can go 10 centimeters higher.
I can go 240. Like I definitely have that in me. So
where does that confidence come from, or that self-belief?
I don't know. Like I think it's one of those things. Like high jump's the event where like no one body type has ever dominated it, and like no one country or culture or anything has dominated it. So for me, like I know that like the goods that I've got are different from other guys, but that's my strength. And so those things for me are I've got a really good knee drive, so that's a technical thing. I'm one of the taller guys and one of the sort of heavier guys. That means I'm a lot stronger than a lot of those guys. And so I think from that standpoint, we've got some stuff that we can really sort of hone in on in the next few years and sort of make those 10 centimeters happen. I mean, I think it's just one of those things that I wouldn't be sitting here wanting to keep jumping if I didn't think that I was going to do better. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's good.
Wow. So when did you start taking it seriously? When did you start realizing you were quite good, or was it a case of like a PE coach shoulder tapping you and saying, hey, we should focus on this? Was it a school thing or later?
So yeah, so it was funny. I was a bit of a lazy student at school, I should say. I think that it was one of those things where I'd turn up and I'd jump well, and I'd run decently, and you know I went to school and I did my thing, and all my teachers and you know in my subjects were always like, oh, he did well, but you know he probably could have
never applied himself.
Tried a bit harder, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was the same for the athletics guys. It was like, they're like, oh, you know, Kerr, because I went to Auckland Grammar, which is quite a, you know, traditional school. Like, oh, Kerr, you know, if you turned up to training, you'd be really good. And I was like, yeah, but see, I don't want to train. Like, this sounds boring. I don't want to wake up early. So I think for me, I was sort of very cheeky in that respect and just kind of like, just brush it off. So I jumped 208 at the end of school, which you know, showed
is that good for so you were 17, 18?
It's pretty good. I won national. I won national secondary schools with that, and that was my first national title. And so that was pretty good. But then I actually went to uni and gave it away. I went to Massey in Palmerston North.
I'm from Palmy. So my
condolences. No.
So what were you studying?
So I did a BCom in agriculture.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you gave it away. So you got to enjoy the full Palmerston North Uni experience.
Yeah. I just couldn't be bothered with, like, I'd grown a lot, and so I was sort of always injured, and high jump was something that I was good at, but it kind of hurt, and I didn't really enjoy it. So, well, I didn't think I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I just went to uni and was like, look, I just want to like party for a few years and just kind of meet people and just, you know, not have the pressure of like having to like, you know, be accountable to anything or just kind of do whatever I wanted. And so I did that, and then I kind of realized...
What did you do to keep fit in that time? Because you obviously didn't blow out completely.
Like I was really lucky. I actually teed up an athletics coach down there before I moved down there, and then I sort of didn't really apply myself once I was down there. But she was super, super patient with me. So it was a lady called Anne Thompson, and she is this sort of local jumps coach down in Palmy. And she was so awesome. Like, she probably once every 2 weeks would just like send me a text and be like, because she knew I had quite a good amount of potential, and she sort of was like, look, like, we've been training on these days, like, just come down if you want, like, but no pressure if you don't want to. And like half the time I wouldn't even reply to her. I'd just be like, yeah, whatever, like,
You piece of shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I feel sorry. Sorry, Anne.
Sorry, Anne. I'm at the Brewer's Apprentice.
Yeah,
Can't come out today.
exactly. It's like, oh, who's this messaging me? Oh, it's a girl. Oh no, it's okay. Yeah. So that was sort of. But she just kept like whittling away at me, and yeah, I mean, I did turn up to training a little bit. Like, I went to the odd training here and there, and actually in my summer, between first and second year, I got a job on a farm because we had to do sort of
like a placement.
Yeah, exactly. We had to do some practical work, and that was honestly the best summer ever because I didn't even check the athletics results or anything. I just could not care. Like, I was drinking beers and shooting rabbits and just living the farm life, which was awesome, and that kept me really fit as well. So I kind of got back into it after I actually spoke at the Massey Academy of Sport a couple of times just around my experiences and stuff because I won the Open National Champs fresh out of high school as well. So I won secondary schools and then under 20 nationals and Open Nationals all in the same year. And the only other person who did that was Eliza, who then later on that year ended up going to Rio and
that's right, won a bronze
medal. So there was her and then this other guy from Auckland Grammar who kind of mucked around and did nothing. So I got to speak about my experiences with them and writing them. It made me realize how much I missed it, and just the camaraderie and kind of just going down to the track on a sunny day and just hanging out with my mates. It was like, damn, this is so cool. And it was actually funny. Like, I had this sort of spate of it was about a couple of months where I just kept on meeting all these really old people, just for various reasons. They're all like, oh, so what do you do? And I sort of said, I'm at uni and I do a bit of athletics as well. And like, oh, I used to do athletics. It's like these big fat guys. Like, I used to run 100 meters. I made nationals. And I was just like, oh man, like, I do not want to be one of those people. Like, and so that kind of just made me realize I was like, look, if I want to do this, like, I kind of have to
commit.
Like, I want to be able to sort of sit there when I'm, 80 and my knees and ankles will be absolutely stuffed. And I'll just be like, it's all good because I did it.
Well, you got some, I was going to say silverware, but like goldware now is like a tangible, sort of bit of proof of your achievements. So the university thing, so I suppose there's two ways of looking at it. I mean, there's, you could say that those 3 years, you didn't make any gains. And if you kept working through those 3 years, you could be at 240 now, potentially. Yeah.
I don't think so. Like, I mean, you might be alluding to this and what was going to be your next point, but for me, like, I grew up as a person, and I think that was the massive thing. Like, I see so many athletes these days who didn't do that, and now it's like they're trying to like train and then also like fit in this like partying and like this life that's like not conducive to getting better at athletics, but then also like the athletics is taking away from the social life, and it's like, people are trying to balance all this stuff, whereas for me it was great because, and like some people can do it, like don't get me wrong, but like for me it was kind of like, look, I could do all that, I blew it all out, and I realized that like it was fun, but it wasn't for me. I wanted to be an athlete, and so now I'm an athlete, and on those hard days and those hard trainings, like when I do question it, because everyone questions it, it's what the heck am I doing here at Christchurch Boys High on a 5-degree morning? Like, it's just like, it sucks. But it's like, I did the bit of my career when I didn't have athletics in it, and now I know what it's like, and so that's what I hold on to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's probably exactly what I was going to say. It's like, there's sacrifices that you have to make, and it was probably good to get that out of your system, rather than potentially be at the age you are now, win a gold medal, and think that's it. I've sacrificed enough, and now I'm ready to retire.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I see a lot with like the collegiate athletes, so the guys who go over to America and stuff, and that looks like such an amazing opportunity. Like I'm kind of jealous I didn't do it, but at the same time, like you're held accountable to something that's not just uni, and you do have to balance that.
Yeah,
that's something that I just personally don't think I was ready for.
Yeah, oh, fair enough. Well, I mean, everything's worked out fine, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's gone all right.
Yeah, so how good were the Palmer years? Where were you living, by the way? Were you in like a hall of residence or?
Yeah, so I was in Halls first year, and then I was on Botanical Road second year, and then in Hokowhitu third year.
Oh, Hokowhitu Flash.
Yeah,
not far from...
Mate, I wasn't in that part of Hokowhitu.
And where were the places that you went? What are the bars? I haven't lived in Palmy for like a long time now.
There was only two when I was there, so it was the Daily and then Shooters. And then
Shooters. I know Shooters.
Yeah, old Shooters. And then about halfway through, like the Daily shut down, but then they like bought Shooters, and so then Shooters was the daily, but there was like 4 different bars in that one, and that was like the only place in Palmy that you could go to. There was like a couple of like nicer places, but come on, we're students, like we don't want to go to those places. And so yeah, it was sort of a little bit slim pickings in Palmy, but no, there's a lot of really good nights there and a lot of fond memories to be had.
Oh, yeah, it's a great, yeah, it's a funny place when you live there as a permanent resident. It's a strange place when the university shuts down. It's a very
100%.
different vibe. Like
Yeah.
the university really injects some vibrancy into it. It's
I remember
quite special.
the first time I went to Palmy, I was like on an interprovincials trip. So it was like athletics. I was like 16 or something, and like you said, like uni wasn't on, and so we stayed in halls of residence and we competed at the track because the track is in the uni. And I vividly remember like we were on the bus leaving Palmy, and it said like you're just leaving Palmy now, and I thought to myself, I was like, I'm never coming back here. Like I'm so glad I'm leaving Palmy. And then 2 years later, I was moving there to go to uni. So I mean, I guess I proved myself wrong, didn't I?
Yeah, I love the place. I got so many fond memories of it.
Yeah.
It's it is weird though, like being so landlocked. Like you are
Yeah.
so far from the nearest oceans, and the nearest ocean's a shit house.
Yeah, and it's so
Terrible.
like it's a great city, and it was really funny like going to uni with a lot of farmy people, and they were kind of like, oh, moving to the big city for uni, and then I was just like fresh out of central Auckland, like. What do you mean the big city? Like, like yeah.
Got it, when you
big smoke.
when you were swiping through Tinder, all the girls must have looked the same with Air Tech shirts on.
Yeah, they run out pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay, so you get back to it. So what year do you get back to it?
So
Like 4 years ago?
yeah, so I fully committed in 2018.
Right.
I started training in 2017, but that was like the end of my degree. I met Terry, who's my current coach, and we just clicked. Like he was the first guy in New Zealand who had actually kind of removed like the whole, oh, you've got amazing potential and like you could do this, but we don't really know how to train you because no one's ever trained a high jumper before. He sat me down and like literally in the first conversation we had. So we were actually on a tour. I qualified for something called World Uni Games, and we went to Taiwan. Or I should say Taipei. They had the uni games there, and we did sort of like 4 weeks together, and he just put me through my training program that my coach had sort of put me through, and just sat there and kind of was obviously like, taking mental notes. And I said afterwards, I was like, look, mate, like I've had a taste of this. Like I think that I could be interested in taking a little bit further. Like, what do you think I need to do? And he sat me down and he sort of thought about it for a bit, and he was like, okay, well, I've got 2 points. He's like, firstly, you're jumping so well given how shit your technique is. And secondly, you're too fat. And I was just like, whoa, okay, like no one has ever said that.
Can you get away with it? I suppose like
he didn't say it in that many words, but like, and he knew that I was someone who could handle that.
Yeah.
And
I suppose that's the thing. It's like being a good coach is part psychologist.
He wouldn't
it?
be saying that to everybody, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about that. But yeah, it's like, it was just like a breath of fresh air to have someone like tell me how it is, because I always knew that there was more. I always knew that I could be doing better, but a lot of people were kind of like, oh, like just keep doing what you're doing and you'll get better. And I was like, no, I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. Like I want to actually take this seriously. I want to, do a proper training program, and I'm quite an injury prone athlete at that time. So I was sort of like, well, I want to address that. I don't want to just sit there and just kind of keep getting injured. And so we delved deeper into it, and he kind of said, look, like this is where I think you could get to, and these are the steps that we can take to do that. And so I kind of sat there and I thought about it for a while. I sort of had half a semester left in Palmy to go, and yeah, I got to the end and I just texted him. I was like, hey, would you be keen on me moving down and getting into it? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So moved there, and the rest is kind of history. Yeah,
oh, that's awesome. Seems like a good relationship too. I've seen some interviews online that he's done, and he talks about how some days you turn up to training in a bad mood or a negative mood, and
and sometimes he does too. So
well, I suppose that's the thing. It's like it's not like the coach of a rugby team where there's 25 people there. It's like just you and him, but it's a big commitment on his part as well. I suppose he's there for you and you're there for him, and neither wants to let the other one down.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've got a few other athletes in our squad.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple of others, but it's one of those things that like Terry, he's employed by Athletics New Zealand, and he always has been. He's just part of the furniture there. Like he He's kind of moved through a lot of different roles in his time there, but he's always prided himself in being a performance coach, and he's never really. He's had a couple of athletes like get close, but no one really like break through. And so I think it was kind of there is a big commitment from both of us. Like I know that what I'm giving him is just as important. Well, it's not just as important, but it is pretty special. And what he gives me is massive for me as well. And so there's a massive trust relationship there, and it's something that we do kind of. Like I said, we've got a training squad, but at the end of the day, when you're sitting there having a beer after Tokyo, or having won Com Games, like that is just us there, and it is pretty special. Yeah,
and that this probably sounds real cheesy, but that gold medal, it's got to feel like it's his as well.
Oh, 100%. Like, it is. It's his gold medal, and it's like last year. It's like that was his Olympics.
Yeah. Oh, how good is that? God, that's so special. And it must feel so good as an athlete that you do it for yourself, but it's also like giving back to him.
Oh, 100%.
It's like you're always saying thank you.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, there's a lot of people in the program who I owe a huge amount to, and Terry is the biggest one of those. But he's not the only one. There's so many guys around me who do put so much into me, and so it kind of scares me a lot. Like I think about it a lot. It's kind of like I'm in a position now where people are invested in this, and I've got to make the most of that, because that's not going to happen for the rest of my life. It's not always going to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've only had two coaches. So you've got the coach you got now, and you had the Chris who passed away of cancer.
Yeah, so I've had a couple, but the two big the big founding ones would be Anne, the Palmy one, who just was super patient with me. Terry, and then Chris, as you said. So
was Chris your secondary school age coach?
Yeah. So he was kind of my first serious coach, and he was great because he just he just wanted us to play sport. Like he wasn't like you're a high jumper. He was like you're just an athlete. So if you wanted to go to play rugby on a day where there's training, he was just like just don't worry about it. And I remember it was funny. Like I always used to have to bike to training. So my mum was like, look, you can play. We'll pay the fees, we'll pay the subs, but you got to get yourself there. That was always the thing that they sort of instilled in me. And so. And I lived in Mount Eden. Training's in Mount Smart, so it's
it's a hike.
It's a pretty sizable distance to travel, and Mum would come and pick me up quite often. So it wasn't like I was going both ways, but it was still. And I remember Mum came to pick me up one day, and I was like, here we go. I'm gonna play Chris off on Mum, and so I was like, Chris, like I'd train way better if I didn't bike to training. Mum should drop me off, and he just looks at me and he's like, mate, I had to bike to and from training when I was young. You're getting picked up. Like, stop being such a little, like, lazy little shit. So, and that was what Chris was like. He was like, look, like, you're not here to train to be a high jumper. You're just growing up. You're just being an athlete. And so that was kind of always his thing. And then, unfortunately, like, I think there was one year where I wasn't doing a huge amount of training just because I had some other stuff on. I think I had an injury, and so I didn't do any of the club stuff, and so I didn't go down to training much. And I still did the secondary school stuff, but he got cancer sort of at the start of the season, and I actually near the end of the season I came out and won North Island Championships, which was one of the first big things I'd done. And I talked to him really briefly via text about it, but he unfortunately, and I was like meaning to go and chat to him and just say thanks and stuff. And the next week he was gone. So
how old was he?
He was 50.
Right. How old were you at the time?
I would have been 16.
Was that your first sort of experience with someone you're close to dying?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think it was just super crazy. Like I just felt bad. Like I wasn't really there that much that season, and I'd only seen him a couple of times, and the times that I had, like he was just wasting away. And I mean, he left 4 children behind, and a loving wife, and just a massive hole of all these athletes who he just loved like his own children, and just supported us. So it was pretty humbling. I will never forget the text I got when it happened. I was sitting in I think it was in physics, and like one of my best mates who I used to train with as well, he texted me and he was just like, Chris has passed away. And it was just like, damn, like it was pretty scary. pretty confronting as a child as well, like just to have that happen. So yeah, I think that kind of, I think about him a lot, like even now, on those hard days and the trainings where I do need to dig a little bit deeper, I'll give him thanks and just be like, I'm here because of him. And I think the cool thing is that of the athletes that he coached, there was about 4 of us who up till quite recently were all still doing the sport. And, for a sport where there's a massive dropout, to have that many athletes still going is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but like when you reach the pinnacle of your sport and you're standing there with a gold medal around your neck, did he like crop into your mind, or
of course,
are you just thinking about just how fucking awesome this moment is?
No, I mean he definitely does. Like I think that's the thing. I mean, when I'm standing up there, I'm not standing up there alone. There's so many people in the camp who are working really hard, and yeah, I think of Chris constantly, and he's someone who will always be there for me. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Now, how was school for you? Were you bullied or anything? What were you like? I sort of find everyone that's on the podcast, has their shit going on. Even people that seem to have the most amazing lives, everyone has their shit going on, or everyone's either they feel bad because they did some bullying at school, or they were a bully. Like no one gets out alive. What I mean, you're a tall dude.
It's a funny concept, and I was thinking about it on the way here, just throughout my childhood and sort of what things I'd say. And it's funny you saying that everyone has shit going on, because like I remember Mum saying this to me when I was a kid, and I'll never forget this, and I'll always tell all my kids this and everything. And it was like she said to me, like, because I was just having like a bad day one day, and she's like, look, like if you don't get through your teenage years by being at least a little bit fucked up, like you're not doing it right. And I'll just always remember that, because it's like, it's just, you've got to learn how to grow up. Like there's just so many things, and you've got to work out who you are as a person. I think for me, like, I try to pretty much just get away with as little as possible at school. That was my thing. So, I mean, I always got like, I wasn't disliked, and I ended up being a prefect by like, I don't even know how. I think it was probably just because like I was white and good at sport. So, which shows
all the Auckland grammar boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Not that I admit it. Nah. So, yeah, I mean, I became a prefect, but like it was just like I kind of always hung out with the guys who were doing like the dodgy stuff, but I always had I was always looking to like see when the teachers were coming, and I'd sort of just like blend back into the background. So, no, I think that, yeah, I wasn't bullied, and I would like to think that there's not too many people out there who think that I bullied them.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's probably a couple out there.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I went to a similar school. I went to Palmerston North Boys High, and
nice.
I feel like everyone sort of gets, I don't know, bullied to a degree for their whatever it is. If you got braces, that'll be the thing.
Yep.
You got big ears, that's the thing.
Yep.
Glasses. But what do you say to you? Oh, tall
Stretch.
guy. What's the stretch? What's the weather like up there? Stretch.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just like, yeah, you could always see me coming, so you could always line them up, get them ready.
It builds a bit of resilience, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what's your family like? So you were one of 4?
So, yeah, 4 siblings, then mum and dad, obviously. So, yeah, we're like mum and dad. So dad's a doctor. He is a cardiologist, and mum is a speech therapist. So both, pretty professional jobs growing up. Like they were always just like, I think dad has always been a massive inspiration to me just because of how hard he works. I think that's something that's really cool. Like I didn't see him much when I was growing up, unfortunately, but I knew that he was out there saving lives.
Why is that? Oh, just because he was
working so hard. Like, and I think that was cool though, because it was like you could tell that it was something that he really loved and he found really, really rewarding. And I mean, like, come on, he's saving lives. Like, he's literally making massive change in people's lives every day. Like,
it's a reasonable excuse to miss dinner, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I was kind of looking at that and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So, yeah, but no, like all the kids have, we've kind of, like, I mean, they'd cringe at me saying this, but I'd like to think we're sort of a bit of a high performance family. Like, we've all done very different things. My older sister has gone into family trades, so she's a doctor as well. And then my little sister's studying law, and my little brother's just graduating with a computer science degree. So kind of all doing very different things, but at the same time, like working really hard on them. And I think that's massive credit to the way we were brought up and the way we sort of just told to work hard.
So you're probably like the black sheep of the family in the respect that you probably earn the least money out of them, being a high performance sports person.
Yeah, so everyone's like, oh, so like what, I'm like, oh, well, we've got the doctor, granddad's a surgeon, like sister's a doctor, and I jump over stuff. So.
But I'm a gold medalist.
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're going to melt it down? Oh,
oh, that's cool. And there's you were telling me before we started recording. So there's a bit of an age gap between you and your younger siblings who are twins because your dad had a cancer scare.
Yeah. So Dom was roasting me, saying that my little brother and sister were a mistake. But
well, no, there's a 5-year age gap. I asked if they were unplanned.
Yeah, but no. So we were actually. So it was actually interesting. We were living in America at the time because Dad had a job over there, which was actually really lucky because they, as people probably know, their health systems interesting to say the least. But since Dad was an employee and a doctor, he got like 5-star care. They got onto it really quickly and they just literally just threw everything at him. And so yeah, he came away. He's been cancer free for my entire life, which is super lucky. But yeah, it meant that having kids was a little bit harder after me, which I claim I have nothing to do with, but you never know. No, so James and Rebecca were IVF.
Right.
And yeah, that's a bit of a. I like to rub in their faces a bit because it's always like, life is priceless, except for James and Rebecca.
Yeah, 10,000.
Cost 10,000 each, so
you can't
which I just always put on them.
So was it? Is it? Are they biological, or is it donor sperm?
No, so it is dad's sperm, and it's mum's eggs, so they're fully part of the family.
Right.
And yeah, so that's also why they're twins because quite often, I think it's still quite common, but in the early days of IVF, they had to put quite a few fertilized eggs in just to get one to stick. So obviously 2 came out. Yeah,
I will tell you, Dad, I'm thinking of him because I went through the whole IVF thing, and I had this tumour in my abdomen area, which means I've got issues down there, and I had to have what's called a testicular biopsy to get the sperm out, to harvest the sperm. Yeah. So if your dad did that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I should actually ask him.
Yeah, I probably
should actually know. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so we'll go to Tokyo last year for the Olympic Games. Yep. I suppose you've got nothing to compare it to in terms of Olympics, but it'll go down in history as the shit Olympics, right? It was the one where you had masks on,
COVID Olympics,
testing. Yeah, COVID Olympics, testing every day, being socially distanced. So what was the expectation for you there? Like, were you just happy to be a participant?
Yeah, so it was a funny one. Like, sorry.
Oh yeah, didn't you like shit the bed leading up to it?
Yeah. So, it was funny. So in 2019, I broke onto the stage. I went to my first World Champs. Oh mate, you're putting the hard questions on me.
Have some water. Are you hot?
I'm a little bit hot, yeah. You can just edit that out.
Yeah. Oh, mate,
or not. Yeah. Back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had a leading up to Tokyo.
Yeah. So 2019. 2019. What's going on? Sorry.
I think you just got emotional talking about your dad's sperm.
Yeah, probably.
That's where it all began for you.
It's probably that rum catching up. Oh, this is weird.
No, you're right. I might grab a water as well. You okay? You don't need anything else?
No, I'm good.
Hey, little boy.
It's so weird.
have you? Yeah, what is that? Just like a frog in your throat?
Yeah, it feels like. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's just like.
That's all right. The other good thing about podcasts is you get shit out anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah. be surprised if it's because I ran this morning.
Really? How?
Well, because I'm so unfit. Like, it killed me.
Oh, like unfit to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. We'll see how that is.
But 15k is a fucking good effort, though.
Yeah, I was stoked.
Yeah.
I was stoked. Back into it.
Oh, you're back into it. Oh yeah. So, Tokyo Olympics. Didn't you have like a shit time leading up to that?
Yeah. So it was a funny one. Like, we obviously hadn't left the country for
a couple of years,
and so my build up was kind of a little bit like, it wasn't patchy, but it was a little bit uncertain. Like, I didn't really know where I was at. I hadn't competed against any of the big boys for a while, and so I went over to Aussie and did a little bit of training over there, just because it's a little bit warmer, and for a power event athlete, trying to get into as much heat as possible is really important for us. And in my last competition, sorry, I lie, it was actually my second to last competition before Tokyo, so it was about 3 weeks out. So about 3 weeks out, I did this competition, and I wanted to start at the starting height, because quite often it's hard to start at a really high. So I obviously mentioned I started at about 217 in comps, but in New Zealand I can't start that high because I have to wait for everyone else to go, and you warm down a little bit, and there's a bit of time between. So generally I'd start at sort of like 210, but I knew at Tokyo it was going to start high, and so I was like, okay, this competition, the goal is to start high and just see what happens. And so I started at 215, which wasn't even the starting height for the Olympics, but it was like, because I think in the Olympics for the final we started at 219.
Oh shit!
So started at 215, warmed up, felt okay, and then I literally no-heighted. So that means I got 3 misses at 215.
You just knock the bar off, so you don't pass any of the jumps.
Didn't pass any jumps. Just knocked the bar off 3 times in a row, and I didn't really know why. It was kind of like, what is going on here?
Because after your first no jump, do you chat to your coach and he says...
Yeah, and he was kind of like, oh, it just looks off. Like I think he was a little bit of a loss as well.
It's a bit of a worry if the coach is like, I don't know.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like, oh, just, because I'm a very rhythm based jumper, so it's like, if my rhythm's not there, then, like, I have to do some sort of intervention pretty quickly and some sort of reset. And so I no-heighted, and for about a week I just didn't sleep because I was just like, I've forgotten how to jump. Like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm going to go to, the biggest event in the world in 3 weeks' time and not even make a height. Like, that was, for me, that was like, at that time, the worst thing that could happen. Like
a confidence crisis.
Oh, absolutely. And it was just like, like, I'm just going to look like an idiot, and like, everyone's just going to be like, well, what the heck are you doing? And, I just had all these like real irrational thoughts in my head. And I literally, I just wake up in the middle of the night and just be like, oh no, it's happening again. And just like, it all just spiraled through my head, and it was just, it was horrible. But so we were in Australia at that time, and then we had planned, and that was me, my coach, and my girlfriend. So my girlfriend does athletics as well. She's a little bit younger than me, and sort of a little bit lower level, but she's sort of coming through. So she was over there with me as well, which was really good. But I didn't have any medical treatment. I didn't have anything. So it was sort of like, I was like, maybe there's something going on with my body. And so we were actually really lucky, because after that we were traveling to the US to go and train with Tom Walsh, who has a place in the US which he bases out of. And there was Tom, Lauren Bruce, who's a hammer thrower, and then their coach and our physio. So we share the same physio. And she was there as well. And so I was like, look, I'll just get on the plane, I'll get over there, and we'll just try and work it out. And so I got there, and Tamsin, my physio, just kind of sat me down, had a look at my body, and there was an imbalance. There was something going on with my sacrum.
What's a sacrum?
So it's kind of like very lower back.
Okay.
It's kind of like, it's sort of like, you can feel like you've got your sit bone kind of like the bottom of your, and there's kind of like there's 2 little bumps just above it.
You didn't have any pain or anything?
No pain. No. It was just jammed. just from training, and I hadn't seen her for a while, and so no one had really picked up on it. And so she got that working again, and she's really good. She loves a good philosophical discussion, and I admitted to her that, you know, I was very worried about going to the Olympics and no hiding, and she sort of challenged me on that, and she was like, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen going to the Olympics? And I was like, no hiding, knowing that she was probably going to prove me wrong. But I was like, well, for me right now, I feel like no hiding would be the worst. And she's like, going to the Olympics and not trying your hardest would be like the worst thing that you can do. If you know height, like, who cares? If you've actually, like, you know, if you've given it your all, you've done all the prep you need to do, and, you know, at the end of the day, like, the result will it'll either happen or it won't. But that's not something that you can worry about.
That's great advice, isn't it? So that's your physio.
Yes, that's my physio.
All right, so you don't need a sports psychologist. You've got like a 2-in-1.
Yeah, pretty much. It's great. Like, and that's what I mean.
How much of it is? How much of like what you do is mental? Like,
it's a lot of it's mental.
I suppose the idea, if you're in like a flow state, you're not even thinking about what you're doing. You just
no. And the thing for us is like, it's not like running where you don't necessarily know what pace you're on, or, I mean, obviously, you know, you can check your watch or something, but it's like, for us, like, we stand there, our name gets announced, and we look at the bar and we go, I'm either going to clear that and I'm on to the next round, or I don't. Like, that's it. And so it's kind of like, it's pretty, like, it can be pretty intense at times. And so if you're not in that, you know, that positive mindset, or, you know, the mindset which is going to enable you to do well, then you will get kicked out the back. And so that's something that is something that I have to deal with constantly. But yeah.
Have you got any like techniques or tricks or tips? Like, how do you stay like mentally positive and focused?
I just remind myself of the bigger picture. I love competing, and I love like the singularity of like being in a competition and nothing else matters. But at the same time, like, when things are going bad, I remind myself that, you know, I guess the thing is like, if I know how to do a competition, or if I do badly, like, I'm still alive. And,
it's
you know,
not the end of the
my parents are still love me, and, you know, I still live in a country where we have, you know, very little, you know, war or massive things going on, like places like Ukraine, which was something that I was thinking about a lot this year. And it's kind of like, you know, we're still really lucky. And so it sort of just puts in perspective for you.
Yeah, also, like, if you no jump, you're not going to be required to do any interviews. You're not going to get any media time. You go under the radar. Like, probably the worst thing that could happen would be if you jump and the bar lands on your testicles and you hurt your nuts. Yeah. Then you're going to be memed and go viral.
Yeah, absolutely. You
like, get a no jump.
Impale yourself, and then like everyone's laughing at you. Your pants ripped.
So I think I read this in a book, or saw it in one of the All Black movies, like Dan Carter or Richie McCaw or something. So they've got this sports psychologist called Gilbert Anoka, and he taught them a thing called red brain, blue brain.
Yeah.
And they all have little techniques of how to reset. Like I think Richie McCaw just retied his shoelaces or touched his foot or
stamped the ground and
things
like that.
Yeah, that's the one. Have you got a thing like that? So if you do a no jump, have you got a way that you?
Yeah, so we call it step back, step up, step in, and that's so you step back from the situation, you assess it, you work out what you need to do to step up, and then you reset back in, and then you forget about all that other stuff and you just go for it. But one of the ways that I use to step back, so that's sort of like because that's the hardest bit, is trying to remove yourself from that situation. What I do is I actually just look at what people are wearing in the crowd. So I'll be sitting there and I'll just be like, oh yeah, that chick's got like, you know, red pants on and there's a blue hat, and that guy looks like an idiot. And, you know, that's my way of kind of like removing myself. And then I'll talk to my coach. I'll work out what we need to change. I'll visualize it. I'll visualize it in two ways. I'll visualize it from me, and I'll visualize it from me on the side looking at me. And then I step back in. I don't worry about any of it. I just go for it.
Because how long is the gap between jumps?
It can be a while sometimes.
10 minutes, 20 minutes? 30?
Yeah, it can be 10 minutes sometimes. Right. So yeah, 10 minutes is probably about the standard. So yeah, if you've just like destroyed yourself on a second attempt and you've only got one left and you don't know what you're doing, it can be a very long 10 minutes.
It's a strange sport, in the respect that like all your training is done in the corner of the school sports field, you and your coach and a couple of others, but never any crowds, always silence. And then here you are on these world stages getting to jump, and you're hyping the crowd up like you want that noise.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the cool thing about competing is that you can hone this craft and this skill in quite a controlled environment, and then go out and just express it. So yeah, that's something that now, this year having quite a few big events, and then leading on to the next sort of few years with the world opening up again, it's something that's kind of reinvigorated my kind of experience of the sport as well, because you go to somewhere like Tokyo and we weren't used to crowds, so like it was kind of like, oh yeah, like this kind of just reminds me of a New Zealand competition, but now,
because there was no one in the greens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
But whereas now it's like if I went back there, I was like, oh, it's just like nationals.
Yeah, because it's strange, isn't it? Because then there's sports like tennis and say golf, for example, and they need absolute concentration to serve and to tee off, and any noise is off-putting. But it's like, I suppose with track and field, there's so much going on. Like there could be people running around you, javelins flying around, all sorts going on.
But that's the great thing about our sport is that like you bring the noise, and as a spectator you can go there and you might not know what's going on, but like just go for it, like cheer and just get amongst it. Whereas you go to a golf, you go to some golf tournaments, you have to wear a dress code. It's like it's crazy.
Oh yes, speaking of the golf thing, so you you said you reset. What was the reset thing before? Step back,
step up, step in.
Yeah, and you said you just look at people in the crowd and think about what they're wearing and stuff. But at the Commonwealth Games where you won gold, I saw footage of you like practicing your golf swing.
Yeah,
like doing an air swing. Where did that fit into that picture?
Oh, that was just again, like I said, like if you have 10 minutes between jumps, you can't be focused that whole time.
Yeah,
and that's something that I love about our sport as well. Is like I said. At school, I was trying to get away with as little as possible. High jump is a lazy event. You do 8 jumps and you're out there for 2 hours. So I get to watch all the track events. I get to cheer for all the Kiwis who are going past me, and that's something that that's cool. I really tee into as well. So yeah, whatever I can do to pass the time, I'll do. But then, a couple minutes before the jump, I'll start focusing again and get back into it.
Yeah. So the Olympics, you finished 10th. Is that the best a New Zealander's ever done in high jump?
Don't quote me on the female side of it, but it's definitely the best a male's done, because I was only the second male to make the Olympics.
Wow.
And then he didn't make the finals. So
right.
Yeah. And that was the thing for me. It was that first things first, I wanted to make a height, because obviously I was worried about no heighting.
Yeah.
I did that and I was like, sweet, pressure's off. And then for me, it was like, if I made the final, like, I'm done. Like, I don't care what happens. Like,
yeah, that's so cool. And that was a real memorable one, eh? What happened with gold and silver?
Yeah.
It was a joint gold situation.
Yeah. So that was a crazy thing as well, is I was, 5 meters away from that, just watching it unfold. And so essentially, what happens in high jump is there's a countback system. So if 2 people clear the final height on the same attempt, so say like 2:30, me and Bob both clear it on our second attempts, and then we don't clear the next height, then what will happen is that it will go to the height before that. And if I got that first attempt and Bob got it second attempt, then I win. But if we both got it on first attempt, then it goes back to total misses. Right. And the person who's missed less heights is the winner. And then if that is the same, then you'll go to something called a jump off. And so what happens in a jump off is that they clear the final height, or they attempt the final height one more time, and then they go down 2 centimeters. They both get a jump at that, down 2 centimeters, both get a jump at that, and down 2 centimeters until someone clears it and someone doesn't. And that's always just been a given. Like, you just do that. Barsham, the Qatari, and Tamberi, the Italian, were both so tired by the end of it. Like, it'd been a 4-hour competition, which was just like absolutely like mammoth. Neither of them were looking like anywhere close to clearing the last height. So it was kind of like, it was going to come down to someone jumping. So they both cleared 2:37. It was going to come down to like one of them scraping over like 2:33 or something, which was just going to be like, you could tell that like neither of them wanted that. Like Tamberi, before the comp, he said to everyone, like I was talking to him, and he just said like, look, I just want to jump high today. Like, that's all I care about doing. So he'd done that. And Barsham has got like this amazing legacy of like all these amazing jumps, and he wasn't in that shape, but he had got into a position where he was in first place. And they're both best mates. as well, which is that's the thing that I find is so fitting about it, is that these are two guys who don't know each other from bar soap. They barely speak the same language, and they come from completely different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah,
and they met because of high jump, and they're in this position where the official said to them, you've got the option to do a jump off, and they went, well, like, do we have to? And he's like, that was what they said. They were like, well, do we have to? And he's like, well, and this was great by the officials' part, because like a lot of officials are real, like, they'll be like, nah, you have to. Whereas he knew the rules, and he was like, you don't actually have to. And so they both looked at each other, and they're like, and then they're like, yeah, sweet. And then it's just like,
that's so cool.
Yeah, and it was crazy because I was like sitting there watching it and kind of like being a fan of the sport. It made sense to me, like because of the reasons I've listed, like because these two completely different guys, like they both jumped really high, like they both jumped as high as each other, and they weren't going to jump higher. So like for me, I was kind of just like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then I kind of got off, and then like got on my phone, and it was just like, poof, it was just like blowing up, and I did not expect that.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It sort of epitomised what the Olympics is, I think, the Olympic spirit in a way.
It was super polarising as well, though, which I thought was super fascinating. I mean, it was
cool.
It?
Like, in the respect that they should have fought to the death.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people who thought that, but at the same time, I'm like, look, you guys are talking about high jump. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the Olympic Games in Tokyo, and then we've got the Commonwealth Games this year. So after finishing 10th in Tokyo and exceeding, I suppose there's the relief that you didn't know jump, and then exceeding all expectations that you had on yourself and everyone else had on you, then do you start thinking, that's it, I want to win a fucking medal? Yeah?
Yeah, so the massive thing was after that, so I obviously went down to Christchurch in 2018, and the goal was to get through to Tokyo and see if I was enjoying it. And then Tokyo happened, and suddenly we're talking about 2 more Olympic cycles. And I was like, whoa, okay, like, sign me up. Like, that sounds amazing. Like, I've had such a cool few years, and I really want to do it. So everything then started gearing towards Paris because I felt like I was in a position where I could win a medal there. And so this year was kind of like, let's take the opportunity to go overseas and, like, just live on the road, because, that's what you have to do as an athlete. It's kind of not really sustainable doing like one big competition a year and then just going back to New Zealand for like, 10 months to train. Like, some people will do it, but I can't do that. Like, yeah. I need other competitions and stuff. And so it was like, look, the world's open, just get over there and see what it's like living over there and see what you can learn. And so that was kind of like the goal for this year was to do that. And like I said, put it in perspective. We're working on a 3-year plan now, and this is the first year of it. So yeah, we had a couple of comps we can talk about. We can talk about the couple of comps as well if you want.
Yeah, what are they?
Well, the ones this year, like, right. In terms of commies and indoors, and I think those, like, I wanted to go to those meets and obviously perform, but at the same time, like, I didn't really have any expectations on them because they weren't the goal. Yeah, which was cool.
Those other ones you're talking about, like the average New Zealander has no clue what's going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we know about the we know about the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games, but so the World Indoors or whatever.
Yeah, so there's like this year we were in a rare position where we had 3 major events. Usually we have one, because we'll have like a World Champs or an Olympics or a Commonwealth Games, and they all kind of like go like that. But because COVID has pushed a lot of stuff back. This year we had a World Indoors, we had a World Outdoors, and a Com Games, which has never happened before.
How did you do it, those things, the indoors and outdoors?
So in the indoors, I got bronze, which was pretty unexpected because I'd never done an indoor competition before. But at the same time, it was an awesome experience. And
pardon my ignorance, what's the difference?
So indoors is like the surface is different, and so your timing and your rhythm changes. It's also a smaller track, so that doesn't change high jump at all, but it means that for the track runners, it's only 200 metres and it's banked.
Almost like a velodrome, like a mini velodrome.
Yeah, like a mini velodrome. And the cool thing about it is, like, the spectators are way more engaged because they're right on you. Because the track, I mean, we compete on like a football-sized field with a track around the outside of it.
Yeah,
if you want to watch something that's on the other side, like, you're not going to have a hope. Whereas, like, in an indoor facility, it's so much smaller that everybody from the entire stadium can follow each event.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And so it kind of feels like a lot more like a sort of like a party.
More intimate, yeah.
Which I think is great for the sport. It's something that really engages the fans. So yeah, we don't do it in New Zealand because we don't. It's kind of come out of Europe because they obviously have quite hard winters, and so they need these indoor facilities to train. Whereas in New Zealand, we kind of, for whatever reason, we've never really gone around to making them. We're sort of just like, oh, it's fine. You can go out in the snow. Like, who cares?
Go do it, you pussy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of the New Zealand, sort of attitude to it. But yeah, so anyway, went to World Indoors. Track was slightly different to what I was used to, and it was a very different experience. It was first time in Europe for a number of years, which was really cool, and came away with equal bronze there, and then came back here and just prepped for World Outdoors, which was about 2 weeks before Com Games. So that was in Oregon. And then I went over to do I did a little bit of Diamond League stuff here and there as well, which is our sort of professional circuit, which again, most people wouldn't even probably know what it is, but it's...
I mean, we hear about Diamond League when Valerie Adams is throwing, and you hear she's winning at a Diamond League, but no one's watching it. No one knows.
No, and that's the sad thing about the sport, unfortunately, is those things are pretty unwatchable as well. Even if you wanted to watch them, it's very hard.
But just hard to
Just so hard to find. And yeah, so yeah, and then kind of went to World Champs. Didn't jump very well. I didn't even make the final, but thankfully 2 weeks later I had another event which people sort of knew a little bit more about in the Com Games, and so I was able to redeem myself there.
So going into the Commonwealth Games, were you feeling confident? Were you feeling like you were a medal chance, you and your coach?
Yeah. We'd talked about it earlier in the year, and for us it was kind of like, where do we want to peak? And I kind of thought that we could hold a peak from World Champs all the way through, and I think we probably still could, but because there was a couple of things that happened earlier in the year which pushed my preparation out a little bit. I got COVID and then had quite a sort of a long recovery after that, and then I wanted to go overseas, and my coach was supposed to come with me, and then he couldn't because he got COVID, and so there was sort of a little bit of a muck around with that, but it meant that I actually got to World Champs, and I said to Terry afterwards, I was like, I feel like I'm 2 weeks away from being ready, and thankfully Com Games was 2 weeks later, and yeah, I knew that I was good for a medal, but
you still need a lot to go right, though, don't you?
You still need a lot to go right.
In the back of your mind, even though you knew you were right for the medal, was there still that sort of like niggly fear of no jumping?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I still, every time I go to a big competition, and it's getting less now that I do more big comps, but like, I'm just like, what happens if I forget how to jump? Like, am I going to remember?
Is that like a dream you have sometimes? You wake up in the night and...
Oh, all the time. Like every time I do a big competition, there is a part of me that goes like, I don't know if I'm even going to be able to take off today. Because sometimes in training there are days where you're like that. And so it's kind of like, yeah, every time I go out there, it's like, oh, you look so cool and relaxed and stuff. And it's like most of the time, I'm actually just like, I'm so nervous and just shitting myself. But yeah, it usually goes right, which is good.
Yeah, I know it did, and it went very right. So who was there with you? Your coach was there, obviously. What about your parents, your siblings?
Yeah, so my parents came over, and then my girlfriend's granddad, of all people, he was actually in Europe at the time, and so he came over and watched as well, which is cool.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. So he was sort of like, oh, I'm in France. And I was like, oh, you want to come to Birmingham? And he's like, oh, yeah, where is it? When is it? Like, I'll come. And so he just like turned up, which was sick.
Oh, that's amazing. How long have you and your girlfriend been together?
About a year and a half now.
Right. Yeah. And you said she's into athletics, not quite at that Com Games, Olympic Games level yet, but what does she do?
So she's a heptathlete, which is kind of like what you do.
How many events is that?
So it's 7.
Right.
Yeah, it's what you do if you're not good at one event. You're going to have to do all of them.
Oh, no, the heptathlon and the decathlon are crazy.
Oh, it's gnarly, honestly. Like, it's the marathon of field events and like of power events. So yeah, it's pretty intense, but it means she does a lot of training, and I'm lucky that she pushes me in training as well, which is cool.
Yeah, how did you guys meet? Just through sport?
Yeah, well, we actually trained in the same squad together. The old "don't screw the crew" didn't apply there, unfortunately. But yeah, so we met through then, and then now we're just happily together, which is cool.
Yeah, amazing. Does she like when you're having those moments where it's a couple of days before a competition and you're freaking out? Is she the person at your ring that can sort of talk you down and remind you that you've done the work. And
and it's cool because like she understands it as well from like a certain level, and I think as well like it's like after Tokyo, like her and a bunch of our mates were kind of like just saying like, they were like, Hamish, we're so glad that you did well, because otherwise you would have been so grumpy. So like that's kind of where they're at with it. It's like they want me to do well because I want to do well, but they kind of don't really mind.
So what do they mean exactly? So if you had a complete shitter at the Commonwealth Games, how long would you be grumpy for before you can draw a line in the sand and move on?
I would claim that I wouldn't be grumpy for very long, but I think naturally as an athlete,
you'd be upset. For sure,
100%.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you don't.
It's a lot of work that goes into it.
Exactly. You don't want to spend all those hours doing the training and then to not happen. But I mean, look, that's the thing though. That does happen. I mean, there are a lot of times where I have failed. There's like I said, there's a number of meets that I've no-hided and we've kind of planned for things and they've never really eventuated. But maybe I deal with them in my mind quite well, but from an outside view, maybe not so much. But
don't talk to Hamish today.
Exactly. Like, well, watch out, he's coming.
Don't talk about the Commonwealth Games. And did your girlfriend get jealous of your bromance with Sam Tanner?
Sammy.
Sam, I follow you both on Instagram, and you guys were inseparable at the Commonwealth Games.
Well, she's super lucky. So, my girlfriend actually knows Sammy really well. So
this is Sam Tanner, by the way, the 1500 metre. Where did he finish? He had a hell of a run at the Commonwealth Games. Didn't medal, but he was there.
So he came sixth.
The happiest sixth place getter ever.
The crazy thing is, so like he'd run 3:34 going into that, and then he ran 3:31 in the final. So a 3-second PB, which is unreal in in 1500 metre. Like,
and it's an insane pace. It's ridiculous.
That's that meet. Him coming sixth and running 3:31, that's like one of the most stacked races ever. Yeah. And to have that happen in the Com Games is like, it's just unreal. So, so it was really cool, like, just him being there. And we actually travelled a lot together that year. We just happened to be doing a lot of the same comps. So
have you known each other for a while?
We've got to know each other quite well this year.
Yeah.
But I knew him through Tokyo and stuff. He's a bit younger than me, so I sort of feel like his dad sometimes.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. He's like the young, excitable child.
We'll give him a call, see if he's on the phone.
Pick up, Sammy. Hello.
Good timing.
Good. Sam Tanner, g'day. What are you up to?
Oh, good. I'm glad I assumed the right person there. I'm just sitting at the top of the mountain with my wife, hey?
Oh, that's nice.
Top of the mountain with his wife. It's a hard life, isn't it?
Geez, Hamish is getting very, very jealous, missing out. He would love to be sitting on the top of the mountain watching the sunset with you.
Well, maybe with his wife, but I don't know about him.
With my wife instead of me.
Yeah. How are you, Sam Tanner? We're just talking about, I just brought up how you guys seemed inseparable at the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yes, we were a little bit, weren't we, Hamish? Did you tell him about that thing, bro?
Oh, nah, was I supposed to?
Oh, maybe not for the podcast. Hey,
Melissa.
You have to now.
Melissa and Maddie might get a bit gutted with that one.
Oh yeah, true. Maybe. Oh yeah, mate. Maybe there was that one, bro. But what about that other one that we were talking about?
Oh, the other one.
All right. Okay. Oh, this is fake news now.
I'll leave with that one, Dom. You can
Are you there?
Oh, yeah. Still there. You there?
Yeah. Your phone just cut out.
He's like, sorry.
All right. Driving into a tunnel. All right. Hey, see you, Sammy.
All right. See you later.
Bye. Was there any stories there or no? Was he just pulling my leg?
Nah, he was just pulling your leg.
Yeah. So who did you room with over there? Did you have a roommate?
No, so I didn't. But we were kind of in an apartment with Tom. So Tom Walsh, shot putter,
and legend.
Geordie Beamish, who's a 5K runner. He's a Kiwi, but he's based in the States. So, yeah, two guys I get along with really well, which was nice.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the stuff that you shared on Instagram, actually, both you and Sam, the New Zealand games for Nigeria looked amazing.
I think that was something that, really made the games experience for me, was, how well the New Zealand team and New Zealand Olympic Committee really, made us feel like we were at home. So they were actually really lucky. They they knew somebody who was on the board of the Edgbaston Golf Club. So we were staying at the Birmingham University, which is like 200 metres away from the golf club. And they knew someone there, and so they got onto them real early, and we were like, look, the Com Games is here in a few years. Like, can we use the golf club as like a base?
Yeah.
So we literally had to just wander up the road, and we were right there. I mean, the Aussies and even the Brits, like, they didn't have something like that. They had to go like 20 minutes into town, and they just had like a couple of tents set up in the middle of, the game's sort of village. But yeah, we were able to go there, and they had like heaps of Kiwi food and like drinks and just everything that kind of made us just feel like we're at home, and spectators and parents and media and stuff, they all kind of congregated there whenever there were big events happening. So
yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. And like the great thing was we were able to go out in the golf course as well and hit a few balls, which was nice.
Do you go all right?
I'm a bit of a hack.
Yeah. I could tell from the swing that you were doing while you were waiting for your jump. No, I couldn't.
It's changing a bit. No, I love golf. Like it's a massive part of my downtime. Like I played probably too much, to be honest, but no, I really enjoy it. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. What else do you do outside of jumping?
I'm doing a little bit of study at the moment. So I'm doing like a diploma in psychology,
right?
Just to kind of keep the brain ticking over. And then I do sort of a little bit of speaking through the Olympic Committee at primary schools and stuff, just to share the Olympic values and kind of share the love as well. So that's cool.
How do you find the diploma in psychology? I've thought about doing some study like that. I'd love to do that.
It's a grind, eh? Like honestly,
is it actually?
Okay. Yeah, I love the content. Like it's not the content's problem. It's like it's me. Like just I took it on thinking that I'd have the time, but I think like the amount of like mental energy invested into my sport nowadays, like now that I'm traveling and kind of doing it full time, it's just like the last thing I want to do at the end of the day is like pick up the book, say. But once I do and like I get into a concept, I'm like, oh, why don't I do this before like the assignment was due in an hour?
Yeah, but there's no shame in pulling out of something though. I think if you sign up to something and it turns out it's not right for you, I think it's quite empowering in some ways to go, you know what, this isn't right for me. I'm gonna
so I actually did that this year. At the start of the semester I did 2 papers, and I pulled out of one of them when I was overseas. I just couldn't do it, and I felt so guilty at the time because I was like, like I've never really done that before, but like once I did it and once I realized that like it was actually all good, like I was just like, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, I mean, you do feel guilty, or even like almost a little bit of shame, I guess, like you're a failure or something.
Yeah.
But there's something quite empowering in doing it.
Yeah, 100%. Like you got to own those mistakes and just build from them.
Yeah, and generally, how's your mental health been? Like, obviously, there's the anxiety and stress that comes with high pressure sport, and we've talked about this before, like just the stressing out about no jumping. But outside of that, mostly good.
Yeah, mostly good.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things that I'm very lucky. I've always had people around me who've really like supported me to just be open, and I think that that's something that is really, really powerful. I always think that you're not weak to speak out. You're actually really strong.
Yeah,
that's something that is very admirable and something that I would I encourage all my mates to have those chats and because it makes you feel so much better if there's something sort of nagging on your mind. And
100%.
It's just like if you can actually just chat to someone. And I think for me, like my experiences with feeling down and all the rest of it, you always just feel so lonely. And then once you actually chat to someone about it, you realize that there are other people who could be going through similar things, and if you can go through those things together, then that actually makes a massive difference. So
yeah, where did that come from you? Is that just the way you were raised with your parents, to be like just open and not afraid to show some vulnerability?
Yeah, I think so. Like I've always known from a very young age that like my mum, my mum has had depression pretty much her whole life, and that was just something that was really normalized for us. Like, she was just like, look, like, this is how it is. Like, I mean, my family has got a history of mental health, and that's something that I don't think we really let define ourselves. We just kind of deal with it and just have an amazing support team around us to kind of work through that. So yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, I know that it's not if those days happen, it's when those days happen.
Yeah.
I know that there's people I can pick up the phone and chat to, which just makes a massive difference.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, how bad is it for your mum? Like, does she have periods where she just doesn't want to get out of the bed?
No, it's not. Like, and
Does
that's
she
the thing,
manage
like,
it quite well?
it's probably like, I mean, like, obviously I don't want to, like, you know, speak for my mum or anything, but it's like one of those things that, like, she deals with it so well. You know, she's been getting help for a while, and you know, she never really let it impact the way that she brought us up or anything. So I think that was something that, you know, that was what I found really inspiring, was that, you know, there was all the stuff happening in the background, which I didn't really know was happening until, you know, a few years later, when, you know, now I talk to my mum about that stuff a lot more, and kind of realized, like, you know, the extent to it. So it's just super inspiring.
Did she just sort of shield it from you guys?
Yeah. Like she had her support network, and, you know, we weren't in an age where we could probably be a part of that. And so, you know, she was focused on the good and the bringing us up with the you know, the morals and the values that she wanted us to kind of portray in our lives, and then there became a time when that became more of a two-way street. And so I think that's really cool. Is I know that, you know, they'll pick up the phone and talk to me, and I'm doing the same. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's good to have those conversations. So I'm older than you, and it was like we would just you'd always just be as tough as what you could and as closed as what you could.
Yeah.
Especially going to a school like Palmerston Boys High School, because if you show any sort of vulnerability, it could be weaponized against you.
Yeah, 100%.
So
I found that at school as well.
Did you?
It was like I like know of people who, like, had things happening in their lives which they just didn't tell anyone until they left school. Like there was one point where there was like a couple of people who, it wasn't in my year, it was a couple of years above me, but like essentially they like left school and they came out as being homosexual, pretty much straight away. And they pretty much said they were like, we didn't feel comfortable doing that at school. And it was like, for me, I was just like, man, like I understand where you're coming from, like, but I reckon that's just so sad. And I think that culture has changed a lot since I left. But
probably seismically, I'd say, over the last 10 years. Yeah. But yeah, when I went to school, like, this is like late 80s, early 90s, it was like everyone was called a homophobic slur every day.
Yeah.
Everyone was a fucking fag or a fucking homo or whatever.
Yeah, which is just like...
So if you... and I look back now and I think, okay, 1,000 boys at the school... You'd assume maybe 100, 150, 200 of them were gay.
Yeah.
Imagine how awful that is.
Yeah, and it's so sad. Like, a lot of those people probably have never come out because of that. Like, and I think that's, you know, like, and that's, I think also, like, from a sporting perspective, the way I look at it is, if there's anything that's like dragging me down, and there's any of those sort of things nagging me at the back of my mind, and I can't be at peace with all of those, then when the pressure comes on and those big jumps and those big moments, not just in athletics, but, you know, in anything in your life, like, they will be exposed and they will bring you down.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to know that those rocks have been, you know, taken care of, and you can't function as a human if you're trying to carry around all this stuff, which actually, you know, there are people in your life who will be happy to, you know, take it for a while you need to do what you need to do.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's one thing that I struggle with, because I think I get validation from like within my family for being the fixer or being the go-to guy, being the solution guy.
Yeah.
So I do find it hard to sit back and say, you know, I'm not doing great at the moment. Can you guys? Which is dumb. It's completely dumb, because no one's ironclad, are they?
No, absolutely not. Like, I think, the more we just talk about it and the more we realise that everyone is just going through all the same stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Oh man, that's one of the takeaways I've got from doing this podcast this year. Everyone is carrying around a bag of shit. It's just how big that bag of shit is.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, that's the same with everyone on tour. I mean, all the great athletes that I know, it's like, it's almost like they're the ones who've been able to deal with it. It's not like they're the ones who don't have it. It's like everyone's got it, and what makes you a great athlete or a great person or a great human is actually working on ways in how you can like just live with that, and be okay with it.
Have you? I mean, this is years away, so you probably haven't even thought about this yet. But I recorded a conversation with Joseph Sullivan the other day, who was he won a gold medal in rowing in 2012. Then he became a firefighter, and he's won a couple of America's Cups since then. But he kind of got shafted after 2012, and that's why he didn't make it back to the Olympics in 2016, and sort of fell into I suppose, post-career depression for a bit. Like, are you worried about that? Like, you know, when the point comes where you're no longer Hamish the high jumper?
Yeah, I think massively. Like I think that like your image and who you are as a person is very much attached to who you are as an athlete a lot of the time, and that's something I've actually had to deal with because being a uni student and having all these other things on the go at once. When I actually fully committed, I was like, I don't know if I want to just be that one person. And so I've actually had to take quite a few years to actually get around to, like, this is the first year I've actually, like, if someone says, like, what do you do? Like, high jump will be what I tell them. Like, even you know, going into the Olympics and sort of directly after the Olympics, it was like, oh, you know, like, I kind of do a bit of study and I do a bit of sport as well. It was like, you know, I'm actually okay with owning that image now. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Like, I think that obviously things have changed a little bit since 2012. Like, I think that the well-being of athletes is starting to get looked after quite a lot better. But at the same time, once you're gone, it's like that's a massive hole in your life to fill.
Yeah, completely.
Completely.
Especially. Oh, sorry.
No,
sorry for bringing it up. You've still got 2 more Olympics to go.
I'm going to have to be a weekend warrior, mate. I'm going to have to have big runs every day. And
just every now and then for validation, wander around with the medal on. Go to like school athletics meets with the medal on.
Back in my day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose in some ways, like, it's even harder the more successful you are because you've gone from the heights of, you know, being on the top of a podium.
Yeah.
So from that level of success, yeah, but I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think
Seems
it's one
like
of
you've
those
got a lot
things.
going on.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like if you're going to define yourself by who you are as an athlete rather than who you are as a person, and I define myself a lot more by who I am as a person. Like, that's who I think of when I think of who I am. If you are very athlete focused, which a lot of athletes are, and you know, some people would argue you have to be.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not committed enough. I don't know, but it's like if you're more focused on that side, then you'll actually probably just find the thing that you want to be interested in and kind of develop through there. Whereas if you've only ever known who you are as an athlete, you know, from a very young age, you've always just played sport. Yeah, it's pretty confronting, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that medal, where is it? Is it at your parents' house or?
It's in Christchurch.
Is it?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Christchurch?
It's in my flat, and I do know where it is.
Please tell me it's not in a drawer. It's somewhere visible, right?
Well, see, that's what. So at the moment, I've got it hidden.
Oh, you've not in a. Is it in a drawer?
But the thing is, so this is the thing. Like, so I've got my World Indoors medal hung up. Like, but I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like, if it got stolen, for example, like, I'd be gutted. You know, that's
you
like
can't replace them, can you?
See, I don't think you can replace them, and so it's kind of like one of those things. Like, I almost don't know if I want to display it. As much as I want to. Like, I've got the singlet hung up. I've got the number. I've got it. You know, that's all done, and that's all very visible. But the medal itself, like, I think that it just means so much to me that, like, if I was to lose that, like I've never really been attached to medals before or anything, but it's like that one medal. If I lost that, man, I'd be gutted.
Well, I've heard about lotto winners that win lotto, and they're so stressed out about what to do to the ticket, they tape it to their body until they can go and cash it in. Why don't you just wear the medal?
Yeah, I'll just wear it around. I'm sure everyone would love that.
No one will think you're a dick.
Here he comes with the bloody medal.
It was 8 years ago, mate.
Wins one medal and he's...
Oh, no, that's cool. Yeah, it's really nice to hear that it does mean that much to you. That's really cool.
Yeah. Look, what I'll do, I'll hide it until I win an Olympic medal, and then I'll display the comms medal and hide the Olympic medal.
So what you're saying to any burglars listening to this is once you win an Olympic medal, they can steal the comm games.
Yeah,
right?
have it. Don't worry about it.
It would be a shithouse thing to steal. It means nothing to nobody, right? And it's not actually worth...
Yeah.
There's
there'd
no
be someone
value.
out there, I reckon.
Eh?
There'd be someone out there who would just, do that just because it was there.
But man, yeah, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Hey, it's been wonderful sitting down with you today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate your time. And it's so, as I said before, like, you make high jump fun to watch. Like, you make it look graceful and easy. And I think that's a sport that, if you can watch a sport on TV that you don't know, like whether it's golf or tennis or high jump, whatever, and it looks easy, I think that's because the people that are doing it are real good.
Yeah. Well, hopefully lots of people think it's easy and come along
Then see how hard
and try it.
it is.
Yeah. So we have a few more people at Nationals or something. It'll be good.
Oh, that's great. Hey, best of luck with what's next. Hopefully onwards and upwards at the next Olympic Games in Paris.
Yeah.
And good luck with the psychology papers as well.
Thank you. I'll need it.